Hello there, everyone, and good evening. Thank you again for attending my financial education workshop today. The topic of our presentation is transforming our financial behaviors during a pandemic. So I want to again appreciate everyone who's here. Just some information and house rules before starting. Now, this program is supported by the Wells Fargo Foundation. So we want to thank them for their sponsorship for supporting CSD and financial education in general. And CSD Learns is hosting this workshop today, so we want to thank you for coming. This is the fourth in a series, and we started on the 14th, and today will be our final one. But at the end, we do want you to ask friends and families to participate in upcoming events. Thank you. So it's important to start with accessibility. Now, keep in mind that this workshop is best viewed through a computer or a laptop. We do not recommend using an iPhone, an iPad. We really encourage you to use a computer. We found that that's the best to access this visibly. Now, if you do need voice interpreters, please make sure that they are toggled to the on position, and we're providing that. Additionally, if you need closed captions, please make sure that you turn them on at the bottom. Closed captions are available as well for your use. Now, again, if you're experiencing any type of technical difficulty or any issues viewing the captions, please feel free to reach out through the chat. We do have technical support available there. And so please, we do encourage you to make use of it so that they can respond to your needs. So good. So far, so good. Next slide, please. And again, to optimize your experience in viewing this presentation, we also have at the ready the presentation and the PowerPoint slides. You can see here how we are formatting our screen. There's an available button for you to toggle the size and resize the screen to best fit your needs so that you can share your screen between PowerPoint and myself as a presenter. And you can adjust these to your comfort level. And again, we encourage you to have the most recent update of Zoom so that you can have all these features available to you. Again, you can switch the size of the PowerPoint as well as a presenter and adjust them as you see fit. Next slide, please. Now, if at any moment you have a question, we do have a Q&A box. Please feel free to direct your questions there. Additionally, please include your comments or any challenges to the questions there that you may have. And if you see that there is a question that you have and you see someone else may have the same question and you'd like a response, please make sure that you upvote these. We will be responding to them through the Q&A. And at the end, we will have time allocated after the presentation to interact and answer your questions. All right, let's go to the next slide. Now, again, we will be presenting our presentation for tonight. As I mentioned before, I want to again thank the Wells Fargo Foundation for their sponsorship and for supporting this workshop. I collaborated with CSD Learns in order to create this workshop series. So again, thank you to the Wells Fargo Foundation. And CSD Learns. This is also a CSD Learns team effort. So they are working here and collaborating with the aforementioned entities to produce this workshop about financial readiness, awareness during the pandemic. So we want to say thank you to everyone. Next slide, please. I do want to introduce myself. I'm the founder of ASL Coach Strategy Partners, and that is my DBA. It's a company that I founded, and we work closely with coachees and people who are really motivated to improve their financial behaviors, to transform their finances positively, and to change the way that they think about purchases, about spending money. And that's the area that I specialize in. Now, again, I am not a certified financial planner. I do want to make that distinction. They do have a license to provide information about retirement plan, but I want to make that distinction that that is not my role. But you are able to contact me through Facebook at ASL Coach, and additionally through Instagram, which is actually my most preferred mode of communication. And the handle is there. It's ASL Strategy Partners. And if you want to discuss ideas to improve your finances, you can always use those avenues to contact me. Additionally, actually, I'm going to change it. I noticed that there is a mistake there. It should be ASL Strategy Partners. And again, it's ASL Coach Strategy Partners is the name of the company. And you're also able to contact me via email, which is pretty cool. It's alex.jones1848@gmail.com. Now, as I mentioned before, we started on January 13th with discussing concepts about behavioral economics and how economics influences our behavior and what the reasoning behind that is. We had discussions about what a certified financial planner does. We also talked about a financial advisor, a CPA, certified financial advisor, and a coach, and how each of them embody a distinct role. So I gave you a basic understanding as well as of behavioral economics. In the second and third workshops, I went into more detail about the concepts of behavioral economics, how psychologists come up with terminology, and how economics and economists come up with terminology and they're applied to our behavior. Today will be the wrap up, and we will be recapping what we have learned so far in the last 3 to 4 weeks. And the concept that I've been using today was coined in 2008, and it affects both your personal and professional lives. And it's really interesting in how you see it come up and how it influences our financial behaviors. Next slide. So the purpose of today's workshop is to establish new financial behavior habits that align with your personal financial goals, and using everything that we've learned so far, to enact new behaviors. Additionally, we will be developing a positive relationship with money and our spending. Oftentimes in the field of finance as well as behavior, we analyze the relationship that we have with money, and this depends on your upbringing, how you internalized your parents or your family's spending habits. They do influence you and continue to play a role. And you can see that today. So if your parents had struggle, you might inherit some of that struggle, right? If they were financially successful, then you might inherit that too. So it's a relationship with money. And then finally, we will summarize everything that we have learned during the series and also create a plan for applying it to your personal life moving forward, and especially during hard times like we are seeing now with the pandemic. Next slide. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, I'd like to poll the audience. What is the best housing ratio equation? Which means what percentage should you be spending? What maximum percentage should you be spending on your household? Whether that's rent, whether that's seen as a mortgage. And we'll be deploying the poll. So go ahead and choose your answer. I see 40%, 32%, 30%, and 60%. Which one do you think is the appropriate ratio? Yeah, so please go ahead and respond through the poll that we've deployed. Yeah, go ahead and respond at your own time. I've seen 30% seems to be a popular one.
I'm giving you 30 seconds.
I'll give you 30 seconds. So now we're waiting for the result. Drum roll. Okay. So most people chose 30%. Let's look at the next slide. Yes, you are correct. 30% should be the maximum, and research proves this. In the financial world, advisors calculate the amount of income that you receive and the amount of percentage that should be allocated, right, for things like debt. Because in a housing crisis or in, let's say, situations where one can't afford their bills and the price of rent may be skyrocketing, when houses are being sold at a higher price, your income plays a vital role in this. If you are spending a larger percentage of your income on your mortgage, on your household bills, and a variety of different expenses, and if it is more than 30%, then I think that you're in a bit of trouble, right? We are actually in a bit of a deficit. You don't have enough money for retirement. You don't have enough money for your savings and emergency funds that you may need for a variety of reasons. Let's say your car breaks down. So it's important that 30% is your maximum allocated percentage and proportion for a household and monthly rent. Next slide, please. Now, I want to go into a little bit of a review session from what we've covered before. So, we do have financial knowledge, which is important in knowing the money ratios, right? And this is a skill that you can develop. For example, this knowledge can look like the amount of credit score and wanting it to increase and learning how to do that, or also understanding how a credit score can decrease and the reasons why. Now, again, I bring you back to this 30%, which is the amount of money that a debt that one should have. When you lease a car, the other 35% is based on your payment history. Your FICO score is tracked through these avenues, and this is filed away and is what is reviewed by lending companies, mortgages, and other kinds of leasing and entities. This information is reviewed to calculate your FICO score, and it comprises 30% of it. And it's all based on your credit history, whether you pay on time. Now, this has a big impact. It's important to know the percentage that you're paying on your mortgage and your rent so that you know the amount of percentage that you have in debt and how much you can allocate towards savings, you can place towards retirement. Now, again, knowing this ratio is really important, and we did go over it last week. It's a very important skill to have. Again, becoming more aware of how your tendencies influence your money spending decisions and habits, whether you are experiencing a certain type of stress, ambivalence, maybe. Again, it's vital that you are aware of your habits. For example, Friday nights at 5, you might be really exhausted. So this will influence your decision-making skills, right? Most of us aren't able to make the best decisions by that time. Your bodily and, cognitive function is actually stronger in the mornings. For example, I usually have a one-on-one meeting with my supervisor, typically on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. It never happens at 4 or 5 on a Thursday or 3 or 4. I like to place it in the middle of the week, 1 p.m. on Wednesdays, because my cognitive function is at its peak at that point. And again, this has an influence on how I make my decisions so that I can best enter this meeting with the most appropriate behavior. So it's important to be aware of our tendencies. There's also two kinds of thinking camps that people belong to. And oftentimes, this has to do with how they spend their money, whether they make big purchases or they buy things that are beyond their means. We have the automatic kind of thinking system as well as a deliberate and reflective one. The automatic one is more impulsive. And whereas a deliberate and reflective one is being cognitive of what you already have, and it requires more thinking and influences your decision making that way. You can apply this to whether you want to have a discussion with a CPA about the partner you're choosing romantically. So this requires a lot more processing before making a decision. So again, there's an automatic response and the reflective response. And research shows that the reflective thinking system is a better one. However, now because of the pandemic, it often impacts us then. And also, we want to think about the financial environment right now, right? You might live with neighbors. You might, go out on cruises, or you want to go vacation or travel. So again, the financial environment, you might be influenced by the people around you if they have certain tendencies or spending habits. You have to think about whether it's driven by uh, your influences or if it's financially healthy. And again, if you live in a suburb, often, you've heard that term of keeping up with the Joneses, right? You might be in competition with each other, who has the best cars, or who has the biggest house, or who's done more of certain things. So again, it's important to be aware of your environment and how it influences your financial decisions. Great, next slide.
All right, so yeah, learning about behavioral economic principles. This is a really important part we need to discuss. So I want you to take a little bit of time here, maybe 30 seconds or so, just reviewing this PowerPoint before I go ahead and explain. So just please look at the bullet points on this slide. Yep, I'll give you just a few moments more. So the overall point here is to give us a new way of making decisions and how we behave with money overall. And it really provides us new tools, a new pathway. And really one thing that the pandemic has really destroyed is our perspective of everyday money, and it's really impacted our thinking. And behavior economics has really been, has been researching for a long time and trying to find different ways of how society is influenced by businesses, by your peers. Maybe you could be influenced by Facebook or Instagram right now. Those are huge catalysts right now. People traveling or going on cruise or buying houses, things like that. You see that on Instagram, you see that on Facebook, and immediately that's something you want. And it starts to impact your lifestyle and your lifestyle choices. And so that really influences our decision making. And so, it's really important that a good way to approach this is to learn more about behavior economics. And so the businesses are very impacted by the federal government's decision to shut down the economy. That really impacted folks, that you had to stay in home. The results of those orders has been, people going home and people ordering at home has gone up. And you've seen, the minivans that are delivering food and delivering boxes and all of those things through Amazon. Some other areas of the economy have either stayed stagnant or even gone down. So here's a perfect example. I think it was Instagram. There was a young man or a couple of young men that were trying to think of something creative, and everyone was watching them. And they started at 8 in the morning. They started this stream, and they did it until midnight. And it was on Facebook, it was on Instagram, it was on other social media, other social media sites, all competing for our attention. And so that's one way that we could apply to behavior economics that shows us where we invest our energy. And so that's a really important principle to learn as well. Next slide, please. Yes, yes, I agree. A time trap indeed. Okay, so I'll give you time to look at this slide, about 30 seconds or so. Just take a look and then I will get into it. Yeah, you got it. You got it. Yeah, I will. I'll go over that. So continuing on, going with this idea of cognitive dissonance, here's an example of it. Let's say I want to improve my savings. Like, so my goal is to save 10% of my annual income. But I'm just spending away on the credit card. So it's like, do I have enough money to buy, let's say, a 70-inch TV? Is that something I really need? Is that wise spending? And we'll think that credit card may have 20% interest on it. So, you know, every month you're paying 20% interest on that card compared to the 10% interest that you're saving, the 10% of your income that you're saving. So yeah, you're saving more. You're saving more money, but the amount of interest that you're accruing over time is actually larger. So that's an example of us not thinking. And of course, again, we're human. I want to emphasize that. You know, we try our best when it comes to decision making. We have to follow our family needs and things along those lines, of course. But buying a 70-inch TV with a credit card, that monthly payment that the company's charging with that 20% interest, and you still have a balance left, that's an example of cognitive dissonance. The other idea, another topic is controlling our attention. You know, I get a lot of notifications on my phone. You know, while I'm studying or reviewing a meeting, they're just going on. I'm getting constantly breaking news. Oh, you have a text, or your friend posted on Facebook. Your friend posted a new picture on Instagram. Hey, 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 you have a meeting soon. Do you want to turn off distractions right now? We get a lot of notifications again and again and again during the day. And it feels like this phone is becoming my second brain, and that my brain is just transferring from information directly to that phone. It takes care of everything for me, and it constantly reminds me and keeps me on track. I saw recently an article in the news. You know, I love that football player who posted on Instagram, or LeBron James posted on Instagram, and I'm constantly, because the phone knows what I'm interested in. And I at one point I was like, how did the phone know that I had a meeting soon? How did it know my interest in LeBron? And that's something similar that's happening when it comes to controlling our finances. The next slide, please. So it's again, when we're talking about that article about one group that I joined about behavior. I joined one behavior economic group through Facebook, and we were discussing ideas about behavior economics and different stories and articles that we've read. And one person posted this article here. So I want you to go ahead and read the slide. Read stages 1 through 6, please. So I'm trying to figure out where exactly I fit among these stages. I'm somewhere around, 3, when you get to 3 and 4, it gets interesting. And it's about the stages we take in processing our thinking, whether it's, rational thinking, where you're thinking, why now, why now? When you think about the stress that's going on in our country, we have a new president, we have a new Congress, we have new senators. Our environment's changing. It's a whole new environment. Our peers are stressed, our family, maybe there's new children in the home. They're doing school, or maybe your kids are suddenly doing school remotely. The economy is trying to adjust, and all of these things are influencing our thinking. So when you get to, 3 and 4, we're talking about how we process our thinking and how we make decisions and how we solve problems. And how we dedicate our attention, and specifically where we dedicate that our attention, and what route we take. Whether we're looking at retirement, or we want to open up a new savings account. Do we want to do that based on our family's needs? Do we want to, go ahead and travel, or stay home and wait? It's thinking about the future. Do we want to buy a house? How many square feet? Where would that house be? Do we want to move to another state, or do we want to stay put? Do I want to change, or, do I just want to, do I want to stay where I'm at? Do I want to promote? Right now I see there's the director and I'm the assistant. Do I want to go for the promotion, or do I want to stay in my current role? There's so many decisions that we have to make every day. And this can help us figure out the different levels of our thinking process. And something that's helped me a lot, I'm going to hold it up here. Just give me a second. I've read this again and again and again to make sure I really understand the material, to make sure I really understand this thought process. And this has been really helpful for me, and how I paired it with behavioral economics, and how I've worked on how we can build a new path towards our desired financial behavior. All right, now it is story time. Teaching is great, financial education is great, but stories, that's where the real impact is. And I've been using behavioral economics since 2008. That was when I first read the book, the first book I ever read. Here it is. It is the first book I read by Dan O'Reilly. And he was teaching behavioral economics with stories. And he was talking about how college, he just tiny little experiments to see all the different results. And so I was reading the stories, I felt they were so fascinating. Before I had several years involved within my finances, my thinking, my behaviors, all leading up to this point. But how I use the behavioral economic prism from either myself or my parents, this has been a wonderful stories within here that have really helped me. And one point, again, is how we make decisions, not only in relation to economics, but when it comes to our life, our partners. Before I met my wife, I would go on dates here and there. And, I think about the kind of person I would meet, and if they had the right lifestyle, if they would challenge me, to grow into a better man, or if I would just kind of stay stagnant in the status quo. Because I knew that I wanted to be challenged and to grow as a man and as a person and as a father, and have the best opportunities for my daughter. And so as I was going on every date, I challenged myself to find someone that was better than me, that I could learn from. And so the person I met that worked at a different university, that was a researcher, had a PhD, and we started to get to talking. And then, move on and meet a professor or a teacher or a researcher. But average folks that are with every day, it's different when you meet someone who really is focused on their career, who's really going to challenge, who's really looking to always continually move up. And that's my wife. And I met her through online dating. It was through algorithm, through home dating analysis. So I had to, answer questions every day. I was constantly answering questions. I would spend all morning just clicking away, answering all these questions, until we found that we had a 90% match, a 90% response. All the data and everything, 90% of us matched in every column. My wife first saw my profile, and it said, and I got an alert that said you had 2 visitors. So I looked at the first visitor, and I was like, okay, all right. And then my wife popped up, and I read, and I was impressed. And I saw that 90% similarity. I decided to contact her because that was some high, and then the rest is history from there. And we're looking, and again, I want to emphasize that looking at data and patterns and habit and tendencies and how people make decisions and how people make choices. And that influenced how the 2 of us met. And then, from then on, we got married, and soon we're going to hit the 3 years together. And, then it'll be 5 years, and whew. So we met, in 2016. We got engaged in 2017. We were married in 2018. There is no time to dawdle, all right? We went for it. Every year, a new milestone. Met, engaged, married. And we went to the Bahamas. You can see the pictures here. We went on a cruise to the Bahamas. Before that, I was thinking, where, trying to decide where am I going to get married, where we want to go, where do I want to propose. And I bought the engagement ring 2 months before I proposed. And I bought it, because once I buy it, you can't change your mind. That's it. So I was trying to figure out how I wanted to propose and all of that. And economic behavior helped influence that. And again, going back to habits, and I found a picture. Here's this picture of the 2 of us on the cruise. And one day I saw the house in the lake house in the Bahamas, and I thought that is where I want to. That's where I want to propose. And it all worked out and you could see the shock on her face. Whew, it was amazing. Next slide, please.
Now, another way that behavioral economics can be helpful is actually a very interesting story. So my daughter and I both got to talking. We were dialoguing about purchasing a car or maybe trading in a car. And so my daughter also had been doing her own research online, and she saw this BMW online. It was a 2014 BMW. And she was adamant. She's like, Dad, this is the car that I want. It's perfect. I actually think this is great for you. It fits who you are. And she went on and on about this BMW. So we both went out for a test drive. We took it out and we agreed. We're like, yeah, we like it. And we did buy it through Auto Trader. So we were driving around, test driving it. And it just so happened there was an issue with the engine. And so again, you can't negotiate it.
Expensive repair.
And it was really an expensive repair. So we reached out to a company that specialized in fixing BMWs. And we, keep in mind that this has really high value. So when it was sold, it was already paid off, right? Sold to us, it was already paid off. So I remember not having a car for about 5 months, trying to figure out what my next car would be, thinking it, mulling it over my head, going through different options. And I decided that yes, BMW is the one for me. And I remember we talked about the word endowment, which is a behavioral economics term, right? It's something that we see as a value, something that we want to be our forever car in this instance, right? And so we could have had the option of buying or leasing a new car, right? Or buying a used car. And so again, this was a nice luxury, and we never really felt at home in this BMW, you know? And so we started thinking whether or not it felt my lifestyle or not. So we made the payments until the pandemic hit and the economy was in disarray. So many things were shut down. And my wife and I were both thinking about what to do with the BMW. And we realized that this BMW had over 5,559 in value, dollars in value. And we realized that, this could potentially be an opportunity for free money. So I talked it over with my wife, and she said, Alex, do you really need this BMW, or do you want this BMW? So I got to thinking, and I decided, okay, all right. So buying a new car, right? If
She bought a new car
she bought a
first.
new car, and the decision was that she would give me this car. It means that we did not have to go into a loan, right? Which was a great compromise. And I wonder why it changed, right? And we were thinking of whether to park it outside or indoors in the garage, right? If we left it outside, then it would not be exposed to the element. So we realized, why are we spending this just to keep it parked in our garage? It didn't make any sense at the time. We weren't using it, again, because of the pandemic. So we decided to give it back. They tried to convince us to keep it, to reduce our spending, but really, I was satisfied with the car that my wife gave me. It's a beautiful car, and I'm actually very comfortable in it. I feel at home in it. I didn't have to take out a loan. And again, this is influenced by behavioral economics. You can see the value in the finance through coaching. You're able to discuss whether you need a car, if you should save money, right? And so, again, the pandemic teaches us what is valuable in your life right now, what is important to you, and how to prioritize these accordingly. And so, that example of transitioning from paying a car to having a zero amount in debt and lease. Now, again, we have this. This is actually, I think, the first time, or the first presentation that I gave. Maybe it was the first or second. I remember mentioning something about hoarding and hoarding your money, stockpiling it, so to speak, where you don't want to give it up. You're in a deficit type of mindset and you're just concerned with wanting to put away money. It's hoarding. And after working with a financial coach, the coach helped me understand that instead of feeling burdened or pained by paying things, why don't you think of it as buying experiences? And this was a great reframe for me, right? Research actually backs this, right? So, for example, a cruise is an experience. Rock climbing, as you can see in the picture, that's another experience that my wife and I, we both love to travel and go to the Caribbean and other countries. These are all experiences. And these actually helped me manage my money a lot better deciding between the pain of buying or if I'm really buying an experience. And I no longer think of it as paying and that being a pain. No, I'm thinking of the experience purchasing power and how that influences me and what this experience means for my life. So, additionally, paying things with cash is another strategy, or paying your vacation with a credit card, right? You're buying this experience. That's another strategy, uh, because later you can pay it off and you can enjoy yourself traveling, going rock climbing, going on a cruise. Again, you're purchasing the experience instead of thinking of it as a pain of buying. Now, I do have several other stories. I have three other stories that I want to explain how behavioral economics was used there. But here in my final thought, I want you to go ahead and take a look at this slide. A culminating point of the education and what I've been teaching so far. Actually, I want to start with an example. In February or January, a while ago, there was a rumor of potentially the possibility of COVID. It had not yet been confirmed. It was still out there. And some of us were starting to prepare, right? While many of us did not expect it to become such a large scale pandemic, it surpassed our expectations and became one of the biggest impacts of our life, having a detrimental effect on our families, our economics, and the like. It really, sent us into a whirlwind. So a lot of us are paying attention. We were watching. We saw this on Twitter, on Instagram. Our peers were sharing about it. There were so many live discussions, all pointing to the pandemic and what was to come, right? It was what was new, it was a novelty. So it's important to pay attention to what's happening around you, right? Now, again, I want to wrap up by showing you my coaching partners. This is ASL Coach Strategy Partners. It's my company. And you can read our mission statement here. Now, again, we work together with you, alongside you, to change your financial behaviors, to transform your thinking, your spending habits, and especially in how you make decisions. Let's say you're looking for a house, or perhaps you want a new car, or any other situation. It's important that we are in a dialogue together and we have a discussion collaboratively. We also probably do life guidance and leadership, and we have discussions. And this was actually set up about 2 years ago, and now it's actually of utmost importance because of the new normal that we're experiencing right now. Many individuals, families are going through several changes. So it actually is even more important now. Next slide, please. Now, again, this is my contact information. You can reach out to me via Facebook at ASL Coach, or just additionally through Instagram at ASL Coach Strategy Partners. And again, here we want to build a community of people that are interested in behavioral economics. Right, and that's the goal of this. Next slide. Great. So we are at the question and answers portion. Let's take a look. So here's a question. If I have no debt, will that cause my credit score to go down? I've actually paid off all of my debt. So the answer is no. It's actually very interesting. 35% of your credit score is comprised from your spending history. For example, if you are making payments on a credit card, or perhaps your mortgage, or an auto loan, and you're doing this on a monthly basis, this makes up 35%. It should not impact that 35%. The remaining 60 to 65% of your credit score, make sure that you do not go beyond that 30% of spending. Right, and you might have a new credit account. Right, and this might affect your limits and the amount that you're spending. You might have taken out a new loan, You might be paying a new mortgage or rent. So really anything that you borrow, you take out on credit, or anything that you may sign up for through your credit card or any other financing avenue, um, has has an impact on your FICO score because your FICO score weighs everything after all. So again, whether it impacts your credit score, I can't answer that, but it will be included in your file. So let's go to the next question. So the next question is, will you be continuing these webinars in the future? Well, my answer is that I definitely want to. I want to figure out any other avenues in which we can continue dialoguing about these issues. And I want to figure out how to set up meetings in the future. So my answer is yes, I'm working on it. This might be available through Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook. And I want to work with marketing specialists to figure out how they can help improve on these concepts. So that's a good question. Thank you for asking.
Oh, can you share your Facebook again? Yes. It's ASO Coach. You can see on the slide right here. ASO Coach is the Facebook handle. And Instagram is ASO Coach Strategy Partners. For Instagram, I'm working on building a community there where I can share resources, information. And ASO Coach, it's my personal Facebook. Sometimes I share my thoughts about finances, some quotes, interesting research, different ideas. That's what I typically post on Facebook. For Instagram, I'm more focused on financial education, best practices, behavioral economics, those things. There's another question. Yeah, people say, it's hard for people to find me. It's interesting how it starts. So ASO Coach started back in 2008. And that was started inside of a network that I was invited to with my colleagues. That was within a community. It was all community invites all the way, and you had to be invited to join it. And so somehow, somewhere in the network, they found me. And so if you have any trouble finding me, just email me. It's at alexjones1848@gmail.com. If you do that, you email me and I will find you. Instagram is typically no problem, but sometimes Facebook is a little harder. Okay, the other question. What is the credit score I should have when looking at buying a house? So I don't want to set up expectations, but the bank, if you're somewhere around, 675, somewhere around higher than that, the bank will be fine with that. Really, 650 and above, the bank will see that and feel that you're in the good credit range or in that rank, okay? Risk that you're a reasonable risk for a mortgage. So if you're 600, 580 or lower, those interest rates are going to skyrocket. Okay, so here's a quick story about this. So again, going back to when the pandemic first hit and everything went awry, my partner, it's a situation involving my wife and I. We just bought a house. No, not like 5 years, 10 years ago, like just bought the house. And we bought it with a reasonable interest rate. The two of us felt comfortable with that. But when the economy tanked and everything went, the insurance rate started to take a nosedive, that 2.8 and below. We said, this is an opportunity. We need to jump on it. So we contacted several mortgage companies, about 3 or 4, and we asked them questions. We kind of surveyed them to see who would offer the most attractive rates for us so that we could save money on our mortgage. And the reason why we had to do that is because the two of us have a high credit score. If we had a credit score that was a little bit less, wasn't as good, you know, our rates might go up. But with a better credit score, if you can hit that 650 or above, if you can be 780, the banks are going to love you. Love you. But 650, you're good. You're in there. And yeah, so that's a good question. Why do you use 1848 in your email? That's a great question. Okay, very interesting. A little bit of background. So I was born and raised in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Are you aware of them? The Virgin Islands? My hometown is St. Croix. That's where I grew up. My parents were born in another country, the West Indies, St. Kitts, and they moved to St. Croix, and that's where they had me and my 3 siblings. So back in 1848, the slaves had a big resurrection, or insurgents that fought for freedom. A slave revolt. They were fighting for freedom in 1848. And as a result of that fight for freedom, the U.S. Virgin Islands and St. Croix and St. Kitts and all of those Caribbean areas freed the slaves. And so they could own their own land. They had, you know, economic autonomy. They could build a community. And so I really thank the people for fighting for freedom. And so my email handle is really in honor of their fight. So thank you so much for asking that. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, next slide. Let's keep going here. All right, so this is some exciting news. CSD is starting an amazing series honoring Black History Month. And we will continue with financial education, but in a different way. Through business ownership, through the POC experience of trying to establish their companies. Go to the next slide, please. And so I strongly encourage you all to go. It starts tomorrow. The first one it's from 1 to 2. And they'll be talking more about the intentions of the program moving forward and what the goals are. So it'll be Black deaf business owners and on surviving the pandemic. And so, you know, if you're Black and deaf, how do you survive? And so that's something that you can take advantage of, and you can learn from their stories. So I really encourage you to go. Again, it's 1 to 2. It starts on February 4th. So you can register for that event tomorrow. Please do. Next slide, please. Again, thank you to CSD for inviting me and my company to host this financial education seminar. And, you know, it's interesting when you merge behavior economics with personal finances. That's amazing. Wells Fargo Foundation, again, a huge thank you to them. They've really seen the economic toll that's been impacting America. And so they partnered with CSD to provide that financial education. So big thank you to the Wells Fargo Foundation. And of course, lastly, thank you to all of you for joining me this evening. Thank you. I've had so much fun sharing with you all. I hope you've learned something. You've taken something away from these last 4 series. And don't forget to join us tomorrow from 1 to 2 Eastern. All right, y'all have a wonderful evening.